Okay. So we're going to input this equation in the what's called a matrix editor in our calculators, and it's not complicated. It's just a new feature that you haven't used yet. So everything seems complicated when you haven't seen it before. So this is no different. Okay? Before you learned how to access the y equals in the table, that was like black magic too. So this is just a little bit different, right? But before we do that, what I want to do is talk about what we need from these equations to put into a matrix, right? So all we need is if your equations are in the proper form, which is ax plus by equals c, which means, that's notation again, but really it just boils down to all your variables are on the left side of the equation and any lone constants on the right. Then what we do is we strip it down to just the coefficients. So we run across the equation, it's x, y, and then the constant, the coefficients of x, 1 and -1, coefficients of y, both 1, and then the constants. So we're ignoring everything else, right? The thing that can be a little dangerous about this is that sometimes you lose sight of the fact that there's a coefficient there. Like there's an implied 1 in front of the x and the y, and then this one has a implied -1 in front of it. I've had people put zeros in their calculator because they said, I didn't see a coefficient there, so it must have been 0. That's not how it works. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to type this into a matrix in our calculator. All right. It's very procedural, but when you get used to it, it's like mindless procedural, right? Which is a good thing because it's like muscle memory. You'll just do it, and then you'll get an answer, and you'll be happy. All right, so what you're going to do, you see this x to the -1st key here? It's right next to the sine key. Pronounced sine, not sin. All right, so it's below the math key. It says x to the -1st. You're going to hit second, and then x to the -1st. All right, so I'll write the steps out over here. Second, x to the -1st. And I'll post this video on YouTube later. All right. Then you're going to right arrow over to edit. All right. You're going to hit the right arrow twice to get to edit because you haven't told the calculator what the matrix is yet. So right over to edit. Just hit the right arrow twice or hit the left arrow once. Either way. And what you're going to do is select matrix A. All right. So you select that by just hitting enter. All right. All right, so it brings you to this display where it says matrix 1 by 1. If you haven't used your calculator for anything like this before, that's what it should say. If maybe you're borrowing somebody's calculator or borrowing one of mine, it might say something different. Regardless of what's in there, we're going to overwrite it anyway. So it could say, instead of 1 by 1, it could say 32 by 75. We're going to change it anyway, so it doesn't matter. The dimensions of our matrix are going to go in where it says 1x1. We're going to put our dimensions. This is a 2 by 3 matrix. All right, rows, columns. All right, so you just type in 2, hit enter, 3, hit enter. And it'll expand the matrix out to accommodate your coefficients. All right. Now this is going to be the standard. We're only working with 2 variable systems, so 2 equations, 2 variables. So there, for our purposes, now if you take gap, you'll do a lot more with matrices. So it's a different story there. But for our purposes, you just leave it as a 2 by 3 matrix. It's going to be like that for all of our questions. All right. So that's something that you shouldn't have to change. Now all I have to do is put in my coefficients. All right. So type in the 1, enter. 1, enter, 4, enter, and it brings you to the next row. All right, so it brings you left to right, then top to bottom. All right, -1, so -1 key, not the -1, so -1, enter, 1, enter, 2. All right, so we entered all the values in. Now we want the calculator to do some work for us. We want it to give us the answer. Right? Well, we know the answer because we did the problem already. But we want the calculator to just flat out say it. All right? So what we're going to do is we're going to quit out of here. We're going to hit second mode. Right? The reason we do that is because if you don't, and then you try to do the next step, you're accidentally going to type the next step into the matrix, and it'll screw everything up. All right, so second mode quits you out of there, gives you a clean slate. And we're going to go back into the matrix menu. So second inverse. So second that x to the negative first key. So we were in the edit menu, now we're going to the math menu. So right arrow over to math. Now these are all the different things that the calculator can do with a matrix. All right, a lot of it, I mean, it's possible that you'll never learn what most of these things mean. Depends on the math courses you take after this. All right, but we're going down and we're looking for the one that says rref. All right, rref is a weird one. I could tell you that it means reduced row echelon form. I could also say that that doesn't really mean much to us, except to say that what it's going to do is simplify our coefficients. All right. When it simplifies our coefficients, it should put it in a form that makes it very, very obvious what the final answer is. Now you may look at this and say, I don't see an rref, but right next to the 9 you see a down arrow, which means that there's more. All right. So scroll down. Now be careful. There's one that says ref and there's one that says rref. We want rref. All right, when you hit enter, it brings it to the home screen. All right, you want it to say rref of matrix A. All right, so the only thing we have to do is call up this matrix A. All right, so back into the matrix menu. So it's annoying that we're hitting second inverse like 3 times, but when you really think about it, we're living out of the same menu. So as long as you know that you're supposed to do something in that menu, you can probably figure out what you're supposed to do, even on the fly. All right, so second inverse, hit enter on matrix A, and you can see right next to it, it says 2 by 3. That's because we stored a 2 by 3 matrix in to matrix A. All right, now, it is reliant on you having stored it in correctly, but it's there. And then when we do that and hit enter, close parentheses, hit enter, you get this. All right. Now, at first glance, you're like, okay, cool. We got a new matrix. How is that going to give us our answer? Well, if we reflect back on what the answer is for this problem, we know that it's 1 and 3, right? We figured it out when we created the graph. So there's a 1, there's a 3. So is that always going to play out? Is the last column always going to give us our solutions? The answer is yes. So the only question I would have if I were in your position at this point would be, okay, well, how? How does that happen? Well, if you look at the structure, the matrix is set up as ax plus by equals c. So this is saying 1x plus 0y equals 1. What does that simplify down to? X equals 1. The second one would be 0x plus 1y equals 3. So it simplifies down to y equals 3. So this is the justification, but thinking to a multiple choice question, what would you really have to write down? Just the choice. Because all of this stuff is happening behind the scenes. I'm not writing any of this out. I'm not even writing this stuff out. I'm looking at my system, getting my coefficients, plugging them in a matrix, simplifying it, and then grabbing that last column to give me my x and my y value in alphabetical order, x first and y. All right? So you get your solution, and so it really doesn't matter what the problem is. You can solve any system. If there's a solution that exists, you can get it using this approach. Right? So I recommend, as you're working through these problems on the next page, you got to do it graphically, but try doing it with the matrix approach to check your work, right? Because at a minimum, it's a way to check your work. Now, flash forward to more advanced courses, all right? Like, I could name all the different types of functions that you're going to learn down the line, but that would be just, it would just sound like I'm trying to show off, like, oh, wow, you know lots of math words, right? Bottom line is there's some crazy functions out there, but if you have a technique that's going to allow you to solve the simple linear cases without you having to do the work, then you don't have to worry about that. You could focus on the more challenging situations. All right, so you're not going to get bogged down with the basic algebra. Right, so you got to answer the question the way it's posed, but now you have this strategy if you want. And like I said, it's an advanced topic, completely optional. Nobody in this course, on the Regents, on a test, on a quiz, nobody is going to ask you to use this technique. All right, you go home, maybe you have a tutor, maybe you have a friend in another class, you show them this technique, they're going to be like, whoa, why the hell are you doing that? Why, that's not in the curriculum. Right? This is an enrichment topic because it's cool, the calculator does it, and also it's a way of getting the answer, lickety split. Right? So it's a win-win. Right? Now, so data test, you completely forget how to do it? Okay. Do it the other ways. All right, create the graph. You'll be fine. All right, but if this is something that resonates with you, that's great. You now have a new skill, and I'll tell you right now, you probably have a skill that lots of other people would not have. Right? Anybody? Chemistry is not this year, right? What are you in, bio? Yeah. Bio. Okay, chemistry is next year. So there's a topic involving balancing chemical equations. So whatever that means. It's a chemistry application of systems of equations. All right. So when you're sitting in a chem class next year and everybody has to do it out algebraically, but you remember how to use this technique, you're going to get the solution to those chemical equation balancing questions. You're going to get them like that, and everybody else is still going to be working like 10 minutes later. So that it's like not the short term that you're going to have the payoff. It's going to be in the long term, where you're going to be like, that skill was good. All right, so just a little something for you. Like I said, if you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fine. Not going to lose any sleep over it. But if it's something that you feel like resonates with you and that you'll remember, then it's a skill and it's a good one to use. Now I just got to remember how to stop the recording. I think it's Windows Shift Q.